feel as though these chats have been getting a little less interactive since I started doing them more often, which makes sense because there's not a whole lot of variety to them. They're just kind of Q&A things, really. And, you know, I guess if some of you guys have been more involved with them than not, then there'd be a little bit of a lack of interest, I suppose. But, it's been a while since I last did one, so I wanted to chat with you all. Hi, Juiced. I don't know how to say your name. I'm gonna butcher all names in the comments again. So, anyways, taking a walk, and I figured I would chat a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about the direction that OC is going in. Yoast. Okay. That's interesting. Thank you for the correction. So, I want to talk a little more about, like, the direction OC is going in, but I think I'll wait until maybe a few more people are in the chat to get opinions and stuff. I don't know if any of you guys saw, but I uploaded 2 guitar covers on my other channel earlier this morning. And the first was a cover of Hajime Hyakuku's Falling Reinforced Concrete, which is from the K-On! Soundtrack. That song's in D standard tuning. I can't retune my guitar very easily because it's got a floating bridge, but I just used a digital pedal to down tune it. And it's not like super high quality or anything, but it's better than what I could do in Logic natively as a third-party plugin. It's by a company, I forget the name of the company, but the pedal's called Pitch Proof. So I just digitally detuned that. I just recorded along to the song, like, tuned up, and anyway, and I corrected it afterwards in post. The second was a cover of, like, a JoJo solo from a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure scene. Anyways, I don't have anything in particular to talk about, so I will, like, pick a random subject or something and start rambling about it, unless anyone wants to bring up a topic or ask a question or whatever, in which case I will answer that instead. I wish I knew how to post the link to these things on Discord and stuff. I don't know if I can if I'm on mobile like this. Like, if I quit out of it, like, is that gonna end the stream, or I don't know. But if somebody's here is in the OC Discord, just, like, post the link there if you would. So I've been thinking a lot about scales lately, which to some of you may sound a little bit I don't know how to help you with that. Botas. I've been thinking a bit about scales lately, and thank you, Fex. I'm gonna assume that's how like I said, I'm gonna butcher all these names. It may sound weird to hear me say that I'm thinking about scales, but because I've talked a lot about how I have a general distaste for scales, especially analyzing music in those terms, because I think it's often, so scales are ways of packaging notes in a form that is representative of a particular range and interval types and an overall color, and they're very useful for a variety of reasons, including organizational reasons. There are 12 notes. That's a lot of notes, and if you can reduce that to a certain number of them, that's fewer, you can organize your music a little bit, both in terms of the color of the tone. And what I mean by that is that the harmonic motive content, so a minor scale is going to have a different character to it than a major scale will. And the subsets of those are going to have different characters to them than the other different characters from one to the next. And so that's useful. However, I think that some analysts try to fit things into scales a little bit more tightly than they perhaps should. So, for example, I saw a blog post one time. I don't remember who wrote it, but there was a blog post about the Hyrule overworld theme from the Zelda series, and it was analyzing the first part of the melody as being the Mixolydian flat sixth scale, which would be essentially a major scale with a lowered 6 and 7. It's also referred to as the the melodic major scale, the idea being that it's the reverse, in a sense, of the melodic minor. Melodic minor has a raised 6 and 7. Melodic major has a lowered 6 and 7, which pulls it. What's the word I'm looking for? It draws notes in towards the fifth from above, and it resists them moving towards the tonic. And so it also is a little bit mellower in tone, in character, than its corresponding major scale because of the lowered notes. Lowered notes tend to mellow things out or darken the tone overall. Now, if you've heard that theme, the melody does technically, for that first 2 bars, it technically does fit into that scale. However, I don't think it's particularly useful to analyze it like that and shifting scales all the time. And I think there are a lot of situations where that's the case, where it's more useful to think major scale and then you have alterations here and there. So in that case, you have the flat 6 and flat 7, but they get raised again at other points. So it's certainly a subjective topic, because to what degree you decide that you should, because it's like, how do you classify a song by a scale? It would depend. So, for example, let's say that you had a song which used all 12 notes of the chromatic scale. You could say that it's written with the chromatic scale, and that would be correct in a sense, but it wouldn't be very useful if the actual construction of the song was essentially just the major scale and then occasionally used the other 5 notes as leading tones very sparsely. It would be more representative of the melody and the harmonic content and everything. I mean, by harmonic content, I'm referring to the melody in this situation. To say that it's written with a major scale. And so it's not exactly easy to decide where that line is drawn. So you can debate that. But I say all that to say that I have been thinking a lot about... I generally don't think about scales. I will think as far as maybe the major and minor scale, and then I just leave it at that. Maybe the blues scale, or when something is like really particular, you know. But I've been thinking about the diatonic modes lately, in particular, because I've been studying rock music and folk music, and because I've been very curious about the development of that, and it's because I want to understand tonicization, which is the process of establishing a particular note as a tonic, and that's how you establish a key. And I think, so it's fairly clear, I think, to anybody who's attempted it, that the major and minor scales, by that I mean the natural minor, and Ionian and Aeolian, let's say, are best suited to triadic harmony. So when I say triadic harmony, I'm referring to the typical chords you're probably used to, where you have notes harmonized in thirds, the major and minor, diminished, augmented triads, that sort of thing. And so sorry, I lost my train of thought. Those two scales are best suited to retaining the sense of the tonic when in use, and at least for that form of harmony. And when you start doing that with other scales, including the rest of the diatonic modes, you'll find that it becomes easier to mistake the tonic for something else. So for example, you might have tried writing in Lydian, which is essentially a major scale with a raised 4. It's, let's say that you're basing that in F, so it's F Lydian. That's F, G, A, B, C, D, E. And you may have found that it's difficult to keep it from sounding as though it's actually in C major or A minor. And so I want to and that one's a little bit obvious because you have the raised 4, which is a leading tone to 5, which would be C. But it's complicated, and I don't know exactly how the whole process works. And so I've been curious about songs which actually do apply scales outside of, major and minor, and how they get that to work. One that's very common is the Dorian scale, which is a minor scale with a raised 6. And so if you're basing that on A, it would be A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Now it's a very, 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 very common scale, and you'll find it in virtually every genre at this point. Yeah, that's why I'm on a walk. I'm searching for my guitar pick. You'll find it in virtually every genre. Every modern genre, owing largely to the influence that folk music had. And that's a fairly easy one to harmonize, because I don't think the raised 6 presents as many problems as, in minor keys, presents as many problems as some of the other notes that you could potentially alter do. But, I mean, so what I found is that when harmonizing that thing triadically, that scale triadically, you have certain chords that are used often, then you have other chords which are not. And I'm wondering if that can kind of help point me in the direction as to what is most beneficial for triadic harmony and what isn't, at least as far as keeping the tonic straight. So, for example, let's say you're working in A, and you're harmonizing the Dorian scale. So that's, like I said, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G. 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7. And so the chords you're going to get from that are going to be A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, F sharp diminished, and G major. The chords that are different, and I'm just talking about the triads here, I'm not including sevenths at the moment. The chords that are different from what you would typically expect from a minor key are the 2, 4, and 6. Now, the chords that you're going to see most often when harmonizing with Dorian, and you're going to find this a lot in rock music, are 1, flat 3, 4, so that's the major 4, and flat 7. 2 is going to be pretty rare. Occasionally you'll see it. What's the song? Song of Storms, the Windmill Hut from Ocarina of Time. That's an example. It's, yeah, facts. That's exactly what it is. Relative scales is another way of, that's another term for modes. Mode and relative scale means the same thing. Aeolian, yeah, Dorian is to Lydian as Aeolian is to Ionian as far as the how far apart the roots are, but so yes, that's correct. But I mean, they're all part of the same pitch set. So Aeolian and Ionian are relative scales, but so are Aeolian and Dorian, and Aeolian and Lydian. They're just a little further separated, at least in a certain sense. Anyways, so like, you're not going to see 2 very often, and occasionally it'll show up. So the battle theme from Chrono Trigger is an example of that. A bunch of music from Octo Expansion uses it as well. Generally, I see that when it's like climbing upwards, it's going to be heading to the flat 3, and moving on from there. Sometimes it'll be major. What's the song? I think it's called Knight's Passage. It's from Sonic and the Black Knight. That one's, it's one of June's songs from Sonic and the Black Knight. It's in C minor, and it goes to it's C minor, D major, E flat, F. So that was probably the rarest of the, quote, Dorian chords to show up would be the 2. 4 is going to be used plenty, like all the time, constantly. There's really no problem with it. Major 4 and minor 4, like, are used to the same degree. There's not really any lack of use for those. So that's kind of interesting. If you see 5, it's usually going to be minor, or if it's, well, it's generally either going to be minor, or if it's approached from below, it's going to be major. So if you are working in Dorian and you have now technically, if we stick to Dorian, the minor chord's on, the 5 chord is minor. But if we approach it from the 4 chord, which is major, it's almost always going to be major. So, for example, the music, I forget the name of the track, but the music for Aleport from Final Fantasy XIV, it's in B minor, and it's heavily based in the Dorian scale. And every single time that it approaches the 5 chord from below, which would be the E major, that's the 4, it goes to the F sharp chord, it's going to be major. And I think the reason for that is to avoid accidentally tonicizing it. Because if you go like flat 3, 4, 5, that can really sound like, especially, so flat 3 is major, 4 is major, 5 is minor. That can really sound like a flat 6, flat 7, 1. And so raising the 3rd in the 5 chord keeps that association from being as strong, and you can retain your sense of where the tonic actually is. I'm not entirely sure why that's the case, or to what extent it is. Like how malleable is it before you can, before you just sort of run out of options, if that makes sense. But that's a property that I've noticed, is that when you're working with Dorian, the 5 chord can be minor or major, but if you approach it from below, it's going to be major, almost always. So 6 is not going to be used super often, like the diminished chord. Diminished chords generally are not used in pop folk music anyways, unless you're doing like the Stairway to Heaven planing, not planing, you have the pedal tones, and it's moving down, the bass is moving down chromatically. So it's like you have, so A minor over, you're retaining the C and E and you're moving the bass down. So A, C, E, G sharp, C, E, G, C, E, F sharp, C, E, there's your F sharp diminished on the raised 6. It's more of a consequence of the counterpoint though, I suppose, than anything else. Not like that really matters, I guess, but because it's still there. Anyways, if you see a chord on with a bass note on the raised 6 in Dorian, it's almost certainly going to be a major 4 chord in the first inversion. And well, if you see the diminished chord, it's a major 4 chord in the first inversion anyways. You just have the flat 7 in there. So, I mean, you will also see flat 6 quite often, which is falling back to the parallel Aeolian scale. You'll see it a lot. I don't think that has, that discounts something Dorian from actually being Dorian at all. I think that it's just the necessity of retaining retaining the balance of fifths within triadic harmony just requires the flat six every now and then in minor keys. It doesn't require it, but like, well, sometimes you want a chord that's not 4 as your subdominant, you know? So, and then flat 7 is flat 7, and that's usually your dominant chord in that situation. In lieu of 5. So that's sort of a long-winded way of saying that the chords that you're going to see, the Dorian-centric chords, the chords that are exclusive to Dorian, not exclusive to it, but like that mark it out as different from Aeolian, are being the 2, 4, and 6. You're going to see 4 very, very often. You're going to see 2 pretty rarely. And you're going to see 6 pretty rarely, but technically it's just an inversion of 4, so I don't know if that one really counts. And then 5 is either major or minor depending on the situation. And so, namely, it's the 2, the use of the 2, or the non-use of 2, and the variability of 5 that has me interested, because those seem to be like, well, they're very common chords in the parallel minor, so why would you not use them with Dorian? It must have something to do with the raised 6 and how that affects their ability to tonicize. Maybe the raised 5 in the 2 chord, I say raised relative to the diminished version, presents issues with tonicization. I don't know. Yeah, you could say harmonic Dorian. It's melodic minor and harmonically. It is worth noting that, like, the raised 7 is just, like, it's like what I was saying initially. I don't want to think about Dorian with a raised 7 as being a completely separate scale unless it's somehow being exclusively used and explicitly used. In the same way, because I think about them in branches. So you have Dorian, and you have minor, like Aeolian, and then you have, like, that's the primary minor scale, and then every other minor scale just kind of branches out from that. And as they get more and more specific, and I guess by that I just mean more esoteric, because specific's not the right word. I'm less inclined to give them a name or refer to them as being like the scale that a chord is associated with. So, anyways, that's something I've been thinking about. Because of this issue with the 5 chord, you're generally going to see 4 used as something of a... Rock music is going to use, and folk music based in Dorian is going to be... I don't really want to say it like this, but I guess I will. The flat 3 and 4 are going to be replacements for your typical 4 and 5. Or flat 6 and flat 7. That's not really the case, but, like, if you imagine they're just taking the weaker versions of themselves, because 4 is a step back from 5, and flat 3 is a step back from 4, both literally, but also in terms of their function. So, And then in cases where you really need something more strong, flat 7 is going to be used, or the 5 is going to be altered and raised to have a major 5. So I don't know. That's just what I've been thinking about regarding Dorian lately, and I don't really have anything in particular to say about it, but that's what's been on my mind. And so I've been listening to lots of, I listen to a lot of rock music and a lot of folk based music like that, and so it tends to come up pretty often. I've been thinking about doing a video on Off the Hook from Splatoon, because their music uses a lot of Dorian, which is expected because it's all kind of rock blues composition. Anyways, to answer some of these questions, I don't know anything about Neo Rhyme. I don't know how to say that name, and I'm not going to attempt it. But I don't have anything to say about that. My dream guitar. I've thought about that. I don't know exactly. Like, I'm interested. I have way too many preferences that don't fit each other. So, like, hi, Chris. I don't like flying Vs. They're not comfortable. Yeah, well, be happy. There's one more in the world for you. Like, I like everything, so, but I can't have everything in a guitar. You know, it doesn't really work that way. So, I don't really know how to answer that myself, but I mean, a guitar that I would really like to have would be something like, well, super strats are kind of the direction that I tend to lean in. I'd want one that would be very simple in its design as far as the colors went. Probably just a single solid color, maybe with like a rim of a different color. Kind of like how my PRS is blue, but it's got a black, a white trim around it. That's what I was looking for. Probably the floating bridge, because I can't get myself away from them. I prefer neck-through guitars, just because they're more comfortable and they have I have more freedom to play up high. I've thought for a while about getting like a really cute guitar that's just got like a single Hello Kitty sticker on it, and then I exclusively use it to play like metal, like really heavy stuff. That would be fun. I don't want to be hardcore weeb. I just want to be subtly weeb. I'd like to get the Mustang that Azazel used in K-On. I want to have at least one guitar that's like that's reliable and doesn't have a floating bridge, so that I can just play it and not. I mean, I know the Mustang has a floating bridge, but you can tie that thing down. So I'd like to get one. Yeah. I wouldn't know. I could do that. I like Les Pauls. They're a bit heavy, but I like them. The shorter scale is comfortable for me. I like that. I don't think so, no. I mean, I associate colors with note names, but I don't know why, and I don't see that in my head when I hear it or anything. I just like, it's more of a mental, a strictly mental association. I mean, I guess in a sense, but I don't know if it counts, right? So like I think of A as being red, and B is purple, C is a yellowish or orange, something like that. D is red. It's a darker red than A. E is blue, F is purple, B flat's kind of like gray or silver. G is green. And then the sharps and flats are generally kind of like in between those colors. So F sharp's purple. Whereas A flat's like a dark red. D flat's a dark red. That kind of thing. C sharp's orange. I also associate colors or temperatures with vowels. So, I mean, I don't know. Hi, Nolly. What's up? So I've been thinking about a different schedule for OC. I say different schedule as if there is one. When up until now there hasn't been for the past 2.5 years. So, I mean, I've been thinking about, I haven't told Noli this yet, I've been thinking about doing like a video a week, but it's like, there are 4 videos in a month. So first week of the month would be a podcast. Second week of the month would be a transcription. Third video of the month is kind of up in the air. I would probably use that to upload personal videos or like videos related to like my own stuff that I'm doing. And then the fourth video of the month will be a live stream. So that's kind of what I've been thinking about doing, and I think that would be really fun. And I'm excited by the idea of having a schedule, and I'm really excited by the idea that it would be something different every week. because it wouldn't be as boring. So that'd be nice. I'm planning on getting, so I recorded a podcast with Gim. He's got a YouTube channel called, I think it's just called Music Theory with Gim, Guim. We talked about a number of things, including performance versus analysis scores, and generally the topic of conversation. We talked about tonicization a little bit too. The topic of conversation as a whole was what resolution of analysis is most appropriate for different situations when dealing with music. And it was a 2-hour discussion. It would have gone longer, but I, needed to cut it off. It was really fun, and I enjoyed it. And I haven't edited it yet, so maybe a little less than that in terms of duration, but probably not too much. I'm expecting maybe an hour and a half or something in total. But I want to be doing one of those a month, and that's exciting to me because I'm at a point with music where I feel that I just don't have anything conclusive to say, and I don't know anything. So it's more fun to me to have conversations with people because it's like I don't feel as though I have to state something as a fact or anything, or say that like this is how something is, or even this is my conclusive thoughts about how I think about something. It's just going to be a lot more, laid back, which is fun for me. I've got another podcast planned. I'm not going to say who the guest is. Most of you probably won't know him, but some of you will, and that'll be fun. But I'm recording next month's podcast next week, so that'll be fun. The podcast historically has not gotten many views at all on OC, but whatever. I mean, it's better than uploading nothing, so it'll be fun. I mean, yeah, I'll try to. I think most of the topics that we're going to be talking about will be things that, like, where listening is less important. So, for example, we were talking about the resolution of analysis of a score. It doesn't really require listening, although we did go over some examples. But I don't know. I'll work out the kinks in the format as it goes, I suppose. I'm thinking I might make the PDFs for transcriptions available publicly instead of restricting them to Patreon, and then in place of those on Patreon, I would have like analyses. But I'm not set on that decision yet, so for the time being, I'll just continue doing what I've been doing. I don't see the Royal Road as any color, specifically. Anyways, I should probably be off, but if you all want to continue talking, I will be around on Discord. There should be a link to the Discord channel in the description. But yeah, so thank you all for joining me, and I will announce, I said I was going to do a live stream every month in the 4th week of a given month, and so I haven't decided on a date for that or time for that yet, but I will let you know when I do. And